spreading freedom is a matter of the present. It's not a distant dream. It's fueled by the past and inspired by the future. So it's something that is happening now, as we can see. So I want each and every one of you to tell us briefly, what are you working currently internationally and what excites you about it? We can start with you, James, please.
First of all, thank you very much for allowing me the honor of being with these distinguished libertarians. The thing that I've tried to concentrate on is preparation for how we win. How do we prepare ourselves? I was a jock, that's a term we have in English. I was an athlete in my student days, and like a lot of men my age, the older I get, the better I used to be. 2 years from now, World Cup star. And I always look at how do we prepare to be able to win? What do we do to ourselves so that we are in the best position to advocate well for liberty? And Tom Palmer, some of you may know Dr. Palmer, Tom wrote a very interesting article many years ago about the importance of rhetoric. Rhetoric in English is a term that now is thought of as being synonymous with sophistry. But rhetoric properly defined is, how do you structure an argument in its most powerful manner so that it flows and it gathers strength? How do we structure our arguments so that they are able to carry people along so that we can move to victory? And so I've devoted most of my attention to, particularly with students, to how do we structure our arguments so that we can move forward. And one point very important, you don't have to get people to come over and become full-fledged libertarians to move the ball down the field. By the way, libertarian in English is an adjective as well as a noun. All of us, I think, are libertarians now. We self-identify as libertarians. But there are many, many more people who are libertarian adjective. Their basic way of looking at things accords with what I would consider to be libertarian values. And what we want to do is to try to reach them, help them become even more libertarian, perhaps to the point where they now self-identify as libertarians.
Thank you, James. Gerardo?
Well, I'm actually in ELP for 3 years. ELP began like 10 years ago, and the idea of ELP, the Alliance of Libertarian Parties, was to become like an alliance of parties which is like libertarians, but the idea also is like become a beacon of liberty, because you know there's another alliances of social democrats, socialists, so there was no alliance of libertarian parties. And in 2015 there were some people from different countries, from England, Australia, Switzerland, Germany, that tried to become like the first parties, small parties, because you know libertarians mostly are in business activities. We are not politicians, we are not in the middle of politics, but we want to make a change anyway. It's not easy, but in the year 2020, when the COVID came, the ELP wasn't very active, and Juan Pina from the Partido Libertario of Spain got in touch with me and told me that they're trying to reactivate the ELP, and Rolf Schoenmaker, who was the president at that time, get in touch with me also. We tried to reactivate, we renew the page, we get in touch again with the libertarian parties around the world, we share experiences. And also there were, some people were interested in Javier Milei, of course, because he was becoming bigger at the time in 2022. And then Javier won, and the people became more even interested in libertarian ideas, because they were seeing that in a small country, but a far country in South America, the libertarian ideas were becoming bigger. And you know, the many young people became interested in libertarian ideas that was not very common. Even in Argentina, I was in a libertarian party like 14, 15 years ago. We tried, we make a try, it wasn't easy. It was still Kirchnerism very strong. There was another party called the PRO and Cambiemos. There was social democrats, not very close to classical liberal, but it was not the time yet for libertarian ideas. And then I met Javier in 2012, and suddenly he became very famous on TV. He goes to shows, you know, he presents everywhere, and suddenly libertarian ideas, it was all in Argentina. So I don't know, in every country is different. I think you have to try in your country too what is good for you. I can advise you what to do there.
Thank you, Gerardo.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I want to start by thanking Liberty International for the great influence it has had on my life for over 30 years. All my projects, my international projects, my personal projects, are outcome of the contacts I made and the experiences I had with Liberty International. And the first project was the translation of Ayn Rand's works into Russian in 1993. That happened because of the people I met through Liberty International when I was living in San Francisco. So let's thank Liberty International for taking Ayn Rand to Russia. There are many people in this room whose names are inside those books because of their help in publishing this. We published all her novels and many of the essays in 1993 when Russia was still free, sort of. My current project, the project for the past 20 years actually, is Language of Liberty Institute, and our major activity is Liberty Camps. And as Maria Alea said, we've been to now 37 countries, and we've reached 4,000 young people, 4,000 students, 4,000 opinion leaders, libertarians, beginning or advanced libertarians. And in fact, many of these people, students, alumni, and teachers and sponsors are also in this room. So please stand up or wave your hand so we see you. So thank you again, Liberty International, for making all this possible. This is the greatest outcome I can imagine, is to have 4,000 new libertarians or more advanced libertarians. Just this past month, we've been to Nepal for a one-week Liberty Camp. It's our 7th time in Nepal. We plan to go again next year, and I hope many of you, or all of you, can join us in Nepal. We also went to Colombia for a week for the 2nd time. We had a 4-day Liberty Camp. Colombia. Okay. And then we went to Peru for a week. Peru. And then we went to Cordoba, and we had a 2-day program. Our activity depends on a local partner, very similar to what Liberty International does with the conferences. You depend on a really good local partner to handle the details, the contacts, the finances. So I based my activities on this model. We work closely with a local partner. And 3 of our local partners for this year are in the room. Ingrid, Oliver, Chris, are you here? Okay, these are our organizers for our Liberty Camp. So it's a great thrill, a great honor for me to meet these people and to work with them. These events this year happened because I met Ingrid in Arizona last November. And she put me in contact with Chris and with Oliver. So, and Project Arizona, as you know, is another outcome, another good project of Liberty International. I especially want to mention somebody you probably never heard of. There's this crazy guy from Poland. I won't mention any names, but his initials are Jacek Spendel. First local partner, we organized how many camps? 10 or 12 camps together in Poland and in Slovakia and several other countries. And that's how we really developed the procedure, the model for doing it. And now he's so much busy. He's so busy with Liberty International and his other projects. We're not doing camps together, but we remain close friends and colleagues.
Thank you.
So.
Wonderful. So, I was actually born in 1993, and I was thinking today when Ken came on stage and with Lobo's keynote speech that this spreading liberty across the world and across borders is joint effort, and it's something that we are learning as a community. James and Glenn, you've been doing this for many years and bringing the ideas outside of the US to other countries. And Gerardo, you've been here in the US, in Argentina and in Latin America and in Spain, as you mentioned, sharing those ideas. And there's a lot of knowledge here that it's important that we pass to this next energetic generation. So the main question I have is, what cultural assumptions do you have to overcome when presenting libertarian ideas abroad? We can start with you, Gerardo, James, and then...
After you, my dear Alphonse. Reaching across borders is very difficult, particularly for me as someone from the United States, because to a large extent in my country, despite the dreadful decline in respect for liberty and responsibility in the United States, there is still a residual of interest. There is a leave me alone tradition in the United States that has actually served us well. Now, by the way, leave me alone is not necessarily a libertarian sentiment. Leave me alone means leave me alone, not leave you alone. Cut my taxes means cut my taxes, not Bill Gates's taxes. So while there is still a bit of a residual of leave me alone in the United States, and I have to be very careful that when I talk about certain issues that I don't bring my Americanism to them. For example, in my country, right to keep and bear arms is a big issue politically. I happen to embrace, shall we say, a rather robust interpretation of the right to keep and bear arms. I'm reminded, by the way, of David Bose's, someone once asked David Bose of the Cato Institution, should private citizens be able to have nuclear weapons? And his response was, well, it depends upon how tough your neighborhood is. I sort of lean in that direction. I have to remember that when I go, for example, to Europe, for a variety of reasons, legitimate reasons, perhaps people, that's not an issue that they are particularly keen to defend. So again, it's anytime you go across borders, anytime you go across cultures, you have to ask yourself the question, am I making certain assumptions that may not translate? And again, in the effort to try to prepare, before I go forward to share my ideas, I try to set goals for what I'm a professor of systems engineering. We always talk about goals. If I want to be successful, I have to know, what am I trying to accomplish? What is success? So that's always in reaching across borders, I need to check my assumptions.
Okay, well, in Argentina and across Latin America, you know, we have many Marxists, in Argentina, Peronists, we have many collectivist ideas that it's not so easy to, you know, to push back. But in our experience in Argentina, like I was saying, we tried like some years ago with a Libertarian Party, a small Libertarian Party. And at that time, the pushback was especially from the Peronism, of course, but also the people who said it was against Peronism, because they say our ideas were very extremist. We are not, you know, we are not very smart people, because they say, no, the things you are trying to change are not enough. But they said, well, Argentina was founded by libertarian ideas or classical liberal ideas like Alberti and many others, and that was that the things take Argentina to a big change after that, especially in the late 19th century, 20th century. We were amongst the bigger countries together with the States and other countries in Europe. There were many immigrants who came to Argentina, and later that changed. Many countries from Latin America know that because they know our experience. But I don't know, maybe in other countries, maybe because we are talking with Bolivia, Peru, Chile. Chile is different because Chile, well, you know, they have a change, but The classical liberal ideas, the libertarian ideas, they are not spread between the people. So people think that well, we are rich and now we have to change to the socialism. Maybe now they have a pushback because of the socialist failure right now in Chile. But I know in other countries, for example, you have a guy in Venezuela who's working with Corina Machado, and it's not very easy there to be libertarian because the dictatorship there is very hard with another ideas, not only libertarians. It's a very, very hard work there in Venezuela. Bolivia is getting worse, I think, if you know. Peru and Colombia, we don't have many contacts yet. I expect to make contacts here with Peru and Colombia. I don't know, every country in Latin America has their own challenges. Maybe you can reply or can make another Javier Milei, but in every country you have to make your own experiences and changes. Every country has their own challenges. I don't know.
Thank you, Gerardo.
I also want to thank you, before I answer your question, I want to thank you for all your help in getting us started in Colombia several years ago. The programs you organized, Roadshow, and then the first Liberty Camp, and then the World Conference. So, special thanks. I think I'll use your expression about challenging assumptions. That's part of my experience too. They're the things that you think are true without really thinking about them too much. One key element for our programs is to make sure that the teachers, my main job is to bring the teachers together and get them prepared and organize the program. And I try to mix teachers from different countries. They need to be native English speakers or almost, and different ages, different backgrounds. And the reason for doing that is that I learned that it's not a good idea for the program to appear to be a US program. Because if it appears to be a US program, students start making assumptions and it distracts their attention from the message. And our message, of course, is universal ideas, universal values, universal morality. This is not a US, libertarianism was not invented in the United States. So, but I really learned this one time, it was many years ago, we were in Kyrgyzstan, and our students we had 40 students, and they were really smart, and they seemed to be understanding our ideas, but they just weren't responding. They weren't opening up. They weren't asking questions. They weren't chatting during breaks or during dinner. And it took 2 days before we were there for 5 days. And it was 2 days before they relaxed enough to talk to us. And I was told later that it was pointed out to me that we had 6 teachers, and they were all from the US. So the students thought that this was a government program and that we were probably all working for the CIA. Seriously, this is what they told me. And we were talking like libertarians for 2 days, but it took 2 days for them to believe that we were really, really for real. And we weren't saying smash the state, we were simply presenting the ideas. But it took 2 days, just because they thought we were working for the government and we were probably with the CIA, and they were afraid to talk to us. So anyway, that's a big lesson I learned. It's really important to mix the teachers and especially to avoid appearing to be partisan. To be associated with it. So we all want to talk a lot about Mr. Millet, and we all love him, but in our programs we can't do that. We can't appear to be aligned with any party or any individual when we're in front of the students. Later on, when we're drinking beer, we can talk privately maybe, but anyway, that's the biggest thing I've learned.
Thank you, Glenn. So every year we come together at these conferences, and it's a great opportunity to create new contacts, to strengthen the bonds that we already have, and to learn from each other, so that we can refuel that passion, you know, again, to keep working, because it's not easy. We all go home and we're kind of like working on ourselves alone. But how can we avoid reinventing the wheel in different countries every time we want to host new workshops, or to keep spreading the ideas of liberty that maybe our partners, young students, or people that get new, that want to keep spreading the ideas of liberty, don't have to reinvent the wheel in different countries and in different cultures? How can we avoid that?
Well, Michael Cloud, an American libertarian, has a phrase, not only sometimes we reinvent the wheel, we sometimes reinvent the flat tire, and that's not a good idea. I think that, first of all, again, we need to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish, and then we need to have these interactions so that we can share ideas, we can share what works, what doesn't work, and we simply try to keep, we have to be attentive to what's going on in the world, and we have to adjust our ways of approaching things to reflect the new realities such as they are. Actually, you made a point about going home and being somewhat discouraged. Allow me to make a couple of points I make, particularly with students. Never underestimate the impact you can have. Never underestimate the good work that you can do, because you may help someone understand, maybe it's just one issue, that you help someone understand that the ideas of individual liberty and personal responsibility will produce better outcomes. All right, that seems like a small victory, but you never know how that one victory can explode in terms of success. And by the way, your reward for helping someone to understand may be, well, you may never realize that reward because you may never see the benefits, the flowers that have bloomed from your tremendous work. Your reward may be calumny, that someone says, well, you don't care about the poor, you don't care about the environment. But understand, your ideas may have enormous impact, not just in the sense of helping to create the next libertarian wonder people like these fellows up here, but because you help keep someone from going the wrong direction. I think it was Samuel Johnson who said, most ideas are not propagated by reason, but are caught by contagion. If you are the infectious agent, you never know how many people might be kept from going completely the wrong direction. Also, always keep in mind, we're right. The ideas of individual liberty and personal responsibility will bring forth, I think, by any reasonable measure, better societies, wealthier societies. And I don't mean just material wealth. I mean spiritual wealth, because we of libertarian disposition are willing to allow our neighbors to live their lives their way, as long as they don't violate the like rights of their neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a truly beautiful vision. It's a vision of love, because we're willing to let people live their lives their way. I think ultimately it will be a compelling vision. So always be of good cheer. Always realize that you may not see the benefits of your good work, but don't underestimate the fact that you are probably doing a great deal to help move the ball down the field.
Thank you, James.
Well, in my experience, we try many years to get to the people, especially, in Argentina, we had like an underground libertarian ideas. There are many academics, many people who were discussing in congresses and many things, but we didn't have any people challenging the ideas in the public opinion. I mean, there were some people behind the media, but few people that could impact. So we were trying for many years to get to the people, to challenge the spirit, the socialist idea, the Peronist ideas in the media. And we didn't know how to get to popular ideas. And, well, Javier Miller is our experience here. And suddenly he connected with people that wasn't that easy before, because the common people saw in him, I think that he was like a common person who was tired of the government, who was tired of the rules of everything that was doing wrong in Argentina. And he came with different ideas, and he sometimes looks crazy for many people, but they see him in like someone honest, someone who can identify with people. Sometimes we forget, we say things that some people don't connect, but we have to find a way to connect with people that get tired of government and rules, and they want to live their lives and to get prosper. And there are some poor people, in Argentina, many poor people get identified with Javier Milei and of the libertarian ideas. Before it was seen like something that was connected with wealthy people or something like that. And Javier said, no, this is collectivist ideas, that people want to get in touch with the government, to get rich. That is not what libertarians want to do. Libertarians is common people that want to get prosper and don't get bothered with the government, want to get subsidies, because many poor people here get subsidies. I said, we are tired of that. We can prosper like any other people here in other countries. They saw that Javier said that, and maybe that's why they connected with him.
Thank you, Gerardo.
I wish I could have heard his campaign. I'll have to find the videos. I'll say two ideas. I have two suggestions, and one is similar to something that James said about not expecting everyone you meet to understand all of libertarian philosophy or history or all of Ayn Rand's arguments. That won't happen. A few people will, but what you can do is tell stories. Learn to tell stories. You can tell the story or show the video. Show iPencil. Show Jonathan Gullible. Tell the story of the broken window. If we tell everybody the story of the broken window, we change the world. To have them read Economic Harmonies to refute all of Marx's ideas. We can do that. We can achieve that. We can teach these things. Second idea is this is a new project that we're considering at Language of Liberty together with Liberty International. Our working title is Politician Boot Camp. This is modeled on the Liberty Camp idea, meaning a 4 or 5 day residential camp for about 30 people, young people, 20s more or less. And the idea is to combine training, maybe 2 days of liberal ideas, the history, the philosophy, the great thinkers, the entrepreneurship, and then maybe 2 days of leadership, marketing, communication topics. The idea is to train young people who want to go into politics either as a candidate or maybe as an administrator. Somebody, Mr. Milei had to appoint people. He had to hire people. He needed other people that understood the ideas, but they're not politicians themselves, like our speaker yesterday. So our idea is to train a new generation in the liberal ideas plus the skills they need. And we will start this in Latin America. And we're not sure yet if it would be Colombia or Argentina. But I'm taking this opportunity. If this sounds interesting to you, we will need teachers, we will need locations, and we will need to raise money. We plan to charge students something. We don't know yet how much it will cost or where it will be. But if this sounds something interesting to you, please see me or see you or see Jacek or see Hernando and give a card or a text message or something, because we're trying to organize this now as soon as possible. So Politician Boot Camp, we can train a new generation to help us, because we can't do it alone. So thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Wonderful. So we have some time for questions from the audience, and so we have one here and another one here.
So I go into the bookstore. This is in the United States, okay? And I found, let me get my glasses on here. Found some incredible titles that were right out in front. One was, I Survived Capitalism, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. Another one, Bernie Sanders, the socialist senator in the United States, it's okay to be angry about capitalism. And then finally, Kristen Godsey has had her book translated into almost 20 languages, not as much as Ken Schooland's Adventures of Jonathan Gullible, but it's called Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism.
Terrible book.
So, do you guys have a title? I mean, you mentioned some titles that have been around many years, but do you have anything that's as provocative as these titles?
Atlas Shrugged is pretty good, but I'll say that you have a point there, Mark, and it's we need more artistic tools to be more out there and to not be unapologetic about what we defend. I heard today a story that Millet hosted a play. He was acting on a play locally, talking with a socialist, and this was a huge success, and this was even before he wanted to go into politics, and I think that's also encouraging to keep doing this. I don't know if any of you want to comment something.
Well, there's several responses I can have. First of all, never underestimate the capacity of people to crank out nonsense at a blistering pace. A point that my distinguished colleague Glenn made, we of libertarian disposition need to do a better job of creating what we call poster children. In other words, we need to humanize the cost of the overly large, overly intrusive, overly expensive state. And frankly, libertarians, I think, are not very good at that for a couple of reasons, one of which is we don't like to feel we're exploiting people who have been mashed by the state. We don't want to feel that we're taking advantage of them in some untoward manner when they're hurting. Also, I think most of us who have seen the other side exploit poster children is there's a natural reaction to say, look, we're not getting the full story here. And I think most libertarians are people of some integrity, and they feel they want to explain the story well. So we generally, I think, don't do a good job of showing our friends and neighbors the cost of the overly large, overly expensive, overly intrusive state. And frankly, we have to get better at that. Now, that may be a tough job because of the nature of how libertarians tend to look at things. Perhaps we tend to process things perhaps syllogistically, and maybe we just don't have a comparative advantage in dealing with this. But I think we have to do a better job. And we do not lack for victims of the big stick of the state. We have to do a better job of helping them explain their stories so that our friends and neighbors are in a better position to make comparisons. By the way, as a university professor, I don't convince anybody of libertarianism. What I try to do is facilitate the conditions by which people convince themselves. And I have this notion, perhaps pretentious. If we ever get to the point where we have a fair playing field, where people are comparing apples to apples and not apples to oranges or apples to rocks, liberty will be the preferential option. If we can get to people where they understand how to make comparisons. And by the way, Tom Sowell has this wonderful, in most cases of human problems, we don't have solutions, we have trade-offs. And I have found as a university professor, a lot of my students don't understand the idea of trade-offs. At least they don't seem to.
Thank you. Let's have a second question.
Primero, buenas tardes con todos. Voy a hablar en español porque mi inglés no es tan fluido. Primero quisiera agradecer de nuevo en nombre de Language of, yo soy SFL, pero quisiera agradecer a Language of Liberty, en especial a Glenn y Hernando, por el gran trabajo que han estado haciendo con todos los jóvenes. Yo creo que la mayoría de los jóvenes que estamos aquí es porque hemos pertenecido a alguno de los Liberty Camps, al menos en la TAN, y creo que es una gran oportunidad que se nos ha brindado, porque generalmente las ciudades de la libertad, o en este caso los campamentos, son solo comunidad de Estados Unidos, de primer mundo. Y creo que Glenn, el excelente trabajo que ha hecho de ir desde Nepal, desde otros lugares hasta Latinoamérica, que casi nadie llega, es un excelente trabajo y es algo que quisiera reconocer a Glenn y Hernando, que han hecho un excelente trabajo. Y mi pregunta en cuestión, por favor, un aplauso para Glenn y para Hernando por el trabajo que van haciendo. Y mi pregunta en cuestión sería, nosotros somos, como mencionaron, la próxima generación de los que vamos a llevar las ideas de la libertad. En concreto, yo quisiera saber cómo nosotros podemos, como dice en el título, pasar esas fronteras, porque sabemos que todavía Perú, Argentina y Colombia ya estamos con las ideas de la libertad. De alguna forma ya estamos moviéndonos en este tipo de ideas, pero hay países hermanos como Venezuela y Bolivia que todavía no pueden expresarse libremente estas ideas de la libertad, sea por los gobiernos o por las ideologías que ya de por dentro se mueven en esos países. Mi pregunta en concreto es cómo nosotros como jóvenes, porque la gran mayoría que estamos acá rondamos entre los 18 a 25 años, cómo nosotros como jóvenes podemos dar ese impacto de pasar las fronteras y apoyar a nuestros hermanos jóvenes, porque generalmente ahora mismo los jóvenes no tenemos mucha esa idea política, tratamos de, no, mejor la política, no, y como dice, ser tibios, porque la verdad, meterse en política en Latinoamérica es o ser perseguido políticamente, o que no eres aceptado, o incluso la política se ve muy o sea, del tipo de delincuencia, como que lo ven muy mal visto. Entonces, quisiera saber cómo nosotros como jóvenes podemos expandir esas fronteras y compartir las ideas de la libertad, sea por programas o eventos, pero como desde la juventud, porque sabemos que nosotros no somos expertos en las ideas de la libertad, no tenemos 3 carreras o la suficiente preparación, pero cómo nosotros podríamos dejar ese granito de arena en otros países como Venezuela y Bolivia, que son los países que realmente necesitan estas ideas compartidas para mejorar su gobierno.
Gracias. So she's first saying thank you for bringing programs like Liberty Camp to developing countries. That she said that she felt that this type of opportunities were exclusive for US and Europe, but that now they had the experience to have the camps in their countries. And the question that she asked specifically is that she says that how can they, as young people, spread liberty across our region, Latin America, because she's saying in Argentina, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, somehow we're being more friendly to libertarian ideas and we can speak freely, but in countries like Bolivia and Venezuela, they cannot speak freely about freedom and they get persecuted, as we have seen with Maria Oropesa. So how can they spread their liberty across those borders, being young? And even if they don't have 3 careers, PhD preparation, or as much preparation as some of us have here, how can they still stay strong in that liberty, spreading liberty?
I think that you can, first of all, study and really understand the ideas. And the people like you that I met, I think that you do already. And live this way in your daily life. Don't hurt other people, don't take their stuff, and keep your promises. And the people around you will know that. They will notice that. They will see you as a good example. That's the first thing you can do, and everyone can do that, and you don't need an advanced degree, and you don't need to be an activist. So that's the first step. Second, as I mentioned, tell stories. Learn to tell stories. Tell the story of the broken window. That's a start. And the third idea is, as I mentioned in our programs, is get ready. Prepare yourself, because opportunities will come. Someday, Venezuela will be free. Someday, North Korea will be free. Well, East Germany is free. Albania is free. Kyrgyzstan, we never thought that would happen. But it did happen, and we have libertarians there, and we have Ayn Rand in Russia. Whoever dreamed that was possible. Ayn Rand never dreamed that was possible, but it is. So get ready.
Le contesto en español ya que estoy. Bueno, no, mira, yo te cuento nuestra experiencia. Estamos ayudando a alguien de Venezuela que está con Corina Machado. No es muy fácil ahí, como sabrás, porque hace poco, el año pasado, creo que habían detenido a una chica que estaba colaborando con ellos, que estaba con Corina Machado, y de hecho yo también tengo una conocida que es profesora universitaria allá, que trabaja en CEDICE, que también me dijo están restringiendo mucho, pero bueno, ellos a pesar de todo intentan seguir peleando las ideas, no es fácil. Mucha gente dejó Venezuela, muchos vinieron acá, otros se fueron a Europa, pero sé que hay como un caldo muy activo en Venezuela intentando luchar a pesar de todo. Nosotros estamos tratando de ayudarlos a ellos, a esta persona de Venezuela. Estamos en contacto permanente con él, tratando yo en lo que pueda. Ahora que estamos reorganizando ILP, la constitución ILP y tratando de recibir donaciones, vamos a intentar ayudar a esta gente para hacerle llegar dinero para que puedan organizar actividades, porque no es fácil, en esos países tienen dinero muy acotado, como sabrás, y no es fácil, pero yo sé que en Bolivia no tengo contacto todavía, este chico de Venezuela está teniendo contacto con ellos, pero hay un economista allá que se llama Mauricio Ríos García, que también nos está dando una mano. Bueno, no es fácil, pero yo sé que ellos intentan luchar y que con los escasos recursos que tienen, a pesar de eso, siguen luchando y haciéndolo como lo hacemos nosotros acá. Esperemos que algún día cambie la situación y puedan volver a tener países más prósperos y libres como nosotros.
Thank you.
One of the first questions you asked was, what assumptions do you have to check at the door? And one of is that what I've been saying to you all basically assumes that if you identify yourself as a libertarian, you're not going to be dragged away and shot. So keep that in mind. One point I always make, particularly to students, is many of the most important points you make have nothing to do with being a libertarian. And when I come across people who clearly are not people of libertarian disposition, I try to offer the following point. Always ask yourself the following question. If you believe in giving government this particular discrete power, would you want that power in the hands of the people you really don't like? And this is a point that people of all political persuasions should understand and I would hope embrace. So there are ways I think you can raise questions to help people understand ideas that don't force them to actually embrace your libertarian values. The idea, for example, that government regulation of labor markets with a minimum wage, that may hurt the very people that you want putatively to help. That has nothing to do with being a libertarian. That's just decent economics. The idea that certain laws, for example, of having a war on drugs, that by having drug prohibition, you may actually make far worse the problems of drug abuse. That has nothing to do with being a libertarian. That's just, in my opinion, good social science. So I think there are ways that you can approach people to get them to understand basic principles where they don't feel they have to check their political passions at the door. So always be looking for ways in which you can make, if you will, non-ideological arguments that actually have great power and great salience.
Thank you, James. We have a short time with these panels, but the purpose of these panels is to open a conversation that we can carry until our next conference. So I invite you to keep these conversations alive. Please approach James, Gerardo, and Glenn and ask questions. Keep asking these amazing questions. And that's it for today. Please, thank you so much to our panelists and our presenters.